What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and another game without a win against a top 10 team. I'm not really too surprised because, we spent a lot of money. We brought in all these players who are probably going to be fantastic under a better manager. Yeah, it's, I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Potter is not good enough. I've already talked about all the reasons why he's not good enough, but today once again showed we've got these new players with new ideas. They're better players too than some of what we've had here, and it still looks exactly the same because the tactics haven't changed. We still look dull. We still look backwards. We still would prefer to try to build up play and knock it around until we find that one great pass into the box instead of just, hey, let's get somebody in there who will make a run, who will get on the end of a cross and find them. And it's the same old with Potter. It's still slow, it's still dull, it's still knocking it around until eventually we either give the ball away or we have to go backwards. And we still look vulnerable on the counter. That's the Potter way. And until we finally realize, maybe this guy is not what made Brighton good, because clearly they're doing just fine without him. Maybe we need a better freaking manager there. It's gonna be more of this. So I will say on his selection, though, first of all, the fact that Cucurella is even playing is just more more nails in the coffin. The coffin has already been nailed shut. It's just for some reason people keep hammering nails in. That's my interpretation of Potter's career at Chelsea. But yeah, playing Cucurella makes no sense, especially with Chilwell back, especially when you've got Hall, who's been a better option. Havertz up top again. It's not working. It hasn't worked under Tuchel. It's how many more examples do you need of Havertz doesn't work as a striker? It's there's one thing to bash your head against a brick wall and hope something will change. It's another thing entirely to just I don't even know, I can't even think of a good example of what they're doing with Havertz, because you already bashed your skull just complete. Maybe that's the good analogy. You've bashed your head into a brick wall trying to make Havertz into a striker. It's not worked, but you keep doing it because it starts to feel kind of good. Because you're just used to the pain. Your brain is gone because you bashed your skull in, and that's kind of how it feels with Potter. He keeps trying it, and it keeps not working. He'll get a goal every now and then from a set piece, but you almost never see him score from making a good run as a striker, from us building up play, knocking it around the box, and then we find him and he scores. That never happens. It'll happen once in 50 matches. That's how bad he is up there. So for Potter's sake, just get him out, let him go be somewhat successful at a mid-table side again. We don't need him here. We need a manager who knows what he's doing, who actually understands when players are not good enough, who understands when to play certain players, who understands how to get players motivated to drive down the field with pace and not, one player on the ball driving while a couple other players jog alongside him and everybody else is walking out of the back. Just some change. Some sense that we have a manager who understands what an attacking formation looks like, who knows what it means to break out from your defense, to win the ball and counterattack. Because my God, he has no clue what he's doing. Or at least if he does, the players just don't understand. He's speaking some foreign language and they're all like, do you get what he's saying? Because based on how we're playing, and we continue to play despite the lack of success, it's clear he wants to play slow possession build-up. And then we get up to the box, and the teams pack it in, and that slow, dull possession play does nothing to create chances for us. And so eventually we lose the ball, or we just go back and we start it all over again. And that is the same exact shit we've seen for freaking 3 years now. When is it going to change? When are we going to get a manager who understands that doesn't work in the Premier League? That style of play does not work, because teams will pack it in, they will clog up the running spaces until eventually you just pass yourself into trouble. And we've done it to ourselves all freaking season, and we've not freaking learned from it. So anyway, that was my Potter rant. Refs today were also awful. Obviously, Fulham is just one of those teams that you can't stand. And it makes it even worse if you don't beat them because just constantly all game they're whining, they're complaining, they're diving, they're dirty. All the typical things that you hate to play against. And then if you don't beat them, then it just makes it even more frustrating because it's like all their fans get to go, ha, you didn't beat us, and you just get to sit there and go, yeah, but you should have had a player sent off for a studs up challenge. Pereira, I think it was. Basically, the only reason he didn't is because Cucurella moved out of his way. It's like, okay, so you're telling me, referee to player, you're telling me that I need to leave my leg to get broken for him to get a red card. If I move out of his way of his reckless challenge, he only gets a warning. Hey, don't do that. But if he actually hits me, oh, that's when it's a red card. Only if your leg is broken does he get sent off. That is stupid. Like, I understand the idea of, well, sometimes there are dangerous challenges that don't actually connect. So in those cases, it's more just whoops. That was accident. This was straight leg, studs up. If Cucurella doesn't lift his back leg, he's done. He's gone. His leg is in two places. The darker part of me kind of wishes he had, just so he couldn't play anymore. But that is suddenly now a red card versus the same exact challenge, but the player gets out of the way and that's now a yellow. That makes no sense to me. If a red card challenge is a red card challenge, give him a red card despite whether or not the player dodged the challenge. I swing my fist at somebody, they dodge it. No, that's just a yellow card for him. He didn't actually hit you. He just swung. He tried to punch you, but he didn't actually punch you. So that's a yellow card. No. You throw a punch, that's a red. You're gone. So that for me is just ridiculous. And watching Tete, just constantly on the ground and the referee every time just basically saying, oh, wow, I can't believe that player just pushed him over even though he didn't touch him. That's a foul. It was insane. The one that really cracked me up, though, in more in like I'm laughing because I'm so pissed off type of humor, is the one where, Tete first gives a little, shove out to Sterling, and then Sterling comes onto his back, and you could see, like, hand onto his jersey, you could see Sterling's jersey doing this number. You could clearly see there is tugging going on from where the ref is standing, and then Tete just falls over, and the ref's like, hey, that's a foul on Sterling. You cannot allow yourself to be pulled like that. That's a foul. It's just, oh man, referees are just getting worse and worse by the day. It's hilarious. But anyways, that's something we can't control. And again, I hate Fulham for it. I hated Burnley for doing pretty much the same thing. But if you don't beat them, they'll just continue to do it because it gets them results. So let's move on to individuals though. Kepa in goal made one really good save, and then one that, it's one of those, he's out of his box. Mitrovic tries it from half field. If he gets beat there, it's embarrassing. But the fact that he did make it back and make the save, it's like, okay, take a breath. But yeah, for the most part, he did fine, I guess. Nothing really spectacular. He did have one moment, which I don't think it was necessarily his fault because we were knocking around so much in the back despite all the high press, because again, we love to just pass ourselves into oblivion. And there's just a moment where they have like 5 guys up there against our, 3 defenders and 1 midfielder. And we continue to pass until it gets to Kepa, and he has no choice but to just sort of hit it under a bit of pressure. I just kicked over my water bottle. Ignore that. And suddenly now, gives it away. Now they've got a chance. But thankfully, I think it was Bediashile who made the block. Somebody managed to step in and put the player who won it off. But yeah, for the most part, though, Kepa did fine. The 2 center defenders I thought were good. Silva, Bediashile, I thought they did well today. Kept a lot of the danger out. On the ball, maybe a little slow, maybe a little, too simple. They did occasionally try to go forward with it. They did occasionally try to find those passes that are a bit more dangerous and a bit more, unlocking the high press. But for the most part, it was just kind of knocking it back and forth. And some of that is get your head up and see what's available quicker. Some of that is there's no movement. So, and honestly, it's hard to see, watching it on TV, it's hard to see what type of movement is going on up top, but I'm assuming there's none because, again, Havertz is the worst. So I don't really blame them for that, and they're doing the defensive part of their jobs very well. And Badiashile, honestly, I don't know why they decided to leave him off the Champions League roster. Again, another reason to say, Potter, get the hell out, because you don't know what the hell you're doing. But yeah, I mean, he's been solid. He's been very good the past few matches, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from him. Compared to what we've seen from Koulibaly all season and what we saw from Chalobah for a couple of games there when he came back, both of them have not been good enough. So the fact that Badiashile has come in and has done well, it's good feeling to have, and especially because he's younger too. It's like, okay, so he could stick around for a little bit, be a good solid defender for us. The wing or fullbacks, Cucurella, I already touched on him a bit, but yeah, just. I'll say of all the chances that Fulham created, half of them at least were because of his bad defending, and of all of the chances that we wasted today, half of them were because the ball went to him and he just doesn't know what to do with it, and he's either bad touch or decides to go backwards whenever he has a better option. He's even when he was at Brighton, I never thought that much of him. He was energetic, which is kind of what Brighton had about them under Potter. That sort of energetic running back and forth. Lamptey has done very much the same thing for them. So watching him at Brighton, I'm like, okay, he kind of fits in there. He's come here and has really shown he's not Premier League quality. And it just, game after game, it's been proven. And then Hall has come in and has looked solid. Has looked a good left back, has looked, for his age especially, very mature, very composed as a left back. Maybe a little weak, but you know what? He's working his butt off. And he's definitely making things happen for us. And then he gets left off the roster today. I don't get it. I really don't. I wish somebody would just explain it to me. Hey, Hall, here's why he's not in. Because from what I've seen from his play and Cucurella's play, Hall deserves to be in 100%. Definitely, if I'm choosing between the two, I'm going with Hall. Now, if he's injured or if he's sick, that's one thing, and I haven't heard anything about that, and I'll probably look it up after and find out he was actually injured, and all my complaints are meaningless because he would have played. I don't think he would have played. I think Potter wants to go with his man, Cucurella, because that's, He came over and he's like, yeah, I used him a lot at Brighton. We're going to use him here too. And he's not done anything. And then, Chilwell coming back as well. Now all of a sudden we're like, well, we got our two starting fullbacks, and all of a sudden Hall is just nowhere to be seen. And that's disappointing for how well Hall has played in all of his matches, for him to just suddenly be overlooked because, now we got our big money signings back in. And that's part of, honestly, that was really what a lot of people didn't like about, managers like Mourinho that came in. He just basically came in, all these big money signings and all these talented youngsters that look the part. Just, we never see him again. And now Potter's doing that, but he's not winning games like Mourinho was, so it's even more of a sin. So, yeah. Cucurella, as long as he's playing, as long as he's involved in the team, I'm going to assume that we're probably not going to win many games. On the right side, James, first game back in a while. Don't know why we started him. I get the idea of wanting to give him a few minutes here and there. He's returning from injury still. We don't want to re-aggravate it. I get that. Why start him then? Because you're going to sub him out, and he's not going to be 100%. So why start him when Fulham are going to be more fit? They're going to be more able to control him. So by the time he finally grows into the game and he finally gets his legs back, you're about to sub him off. And that's exactly what happened. He started the second half pretty brightly. Making some good runs, little 1-2s in and out, created one of our most dangerous chances at the beginning of the second half. And then 5 minutes later, he's off the field. So why wasn't it, all right, we'll start with Azpilicueta on the right side, and then we'll bring James in a little bit later, after Azpilicueta's constant running, because that's one thing he does have going for him. After he's constantly up and down the field, making people work, that's when we'll bring James in, and now their legs, they won't be able to keep up with him. He'll be returning from injury. He'll be looking to grow into the game. It's just stupid. Stupidity, in my opinion, is what made that decision. So, but yeah, James first half just not much to show for it, and I don't I don't think that's really a knock on him because again he's returning from injury, so I think he'll get better as he grows back into the team. But yeah, in the midfield, first game for Enzo Fernandez. I will say, I might do a longer video talking more in depth about my thoughts on the transfers. I will say it's gonna feel weird to see the number 5 and not instantly like cringe every time, but yeah, I mean, better than Jorginho. Off the bat, just looks more energetic in there, looks more physically capable of dealing with it. The only problem he had today, in my opinion, was getting double or triple teamed. And that's something that I think can be fixed if we have another midfield partner in there, because honestly, he was in there all by himself. Gallagher was more of a box to box. Mount stayed further forward. So of the 3 midfielders, we only had one that was really our kind of anchor point, and the other midfielders weren't really there helping him. They were more focused on getting down the field. So I feel like if you have actually somebody sitting in there with him to provide another option, more support, basically another decoy for players to put pressure on, so that way he's not the only one getting pressure put on him whenever he gets the ball, I think he'll be a lot more successful because his passes today were pretty solid. Couple giveaways here and there as the game wore on, and as I think his legs started to maybe give a little bit. But I thought for a debut, first time in the Premier League, young player, he looked pretty good. And again, I think physically much more capable of dealing with the threats in there than Jorginho was. Also defensively looked miles ahead of Jorginho. So yeah, I'm excited to see more from him. I can't believe Arsenal got conned into taking Jorginho off of us, but thank you, Arsenal, for that. I'm going to laugh if they start dropping off because they start playing him more and they start just losing matches. But anyways, the other 2 midfielders, Gallagher, Mount, feels very odd for me because Mount, in my opinion, in the final third looks awful right now. His first touch is terrible. His shooting, his decision-making in the final third is awful. His work rate off the ball, though, still fantastic. So you would think, well, let's play him a bit deeper so he can work to win the ball back and then get it out. And that's kind of what he's doing well at the moment. But instead, Potter's playing him further forward, which means he has a lot of opportunities to get on the ball and lose it and take a bad touch or something along those lines. Gallagher, on the other hand, defensively, off the ball, constantly getting beat, constantly late to the challenge, not reading play, not cutting off passes. Defensively is not helping us. On the ball, looks pretty solid. Gets on the ball, looks dangerous, looks to find good passes that will open up the defense. But of the 2, he's playing a bit deeper. So it's just funny to me to see, all right, well, this guy looks like he'd be better deeper, but he's playing further forward. This guy looks like he'd be better in the final third, but he's playing deeper than the other one. Like, how come I can look at this and see that's a problem, and Potter's just like, this is what we want to see? I don't get that. But yeah, part of it I do feel like is positioning where the coach is telling them to play, but the other part of it is they both do need to really, I don't know if it's a confidence thing, I don't know if it's a focus thing, but both of them definitely need, if this is where they're going to be playing, Mount further forward, Gallagher a bit deeper, they need to work on those parts of their game, because right now where they are, they're doing that job very poorly. So again, I don't get it. I don't understand why Potter's deciding to do that, but it's what we're stuck with for the moment. Ziyech, difficult one for me to call, just because he was working hard. He was trying to make things happen. It just felt like his decisions today was the biggest problem. Too many moments where he should have put it across, but he takes an extra touch or tries to take on a player when he should have just laid it off and made a little 1-2 run. Too many moments like that today, and it felt like it was constantly becoming a problem because we were going down his side a lot. But there were too many moments where it felt like it just came to nothing because, I don't know, it just felt like he didn't know what he was doing today. So it's not like he didn't work hard. It's not like he didn't put in an effort like some people. It did feel like, though, his quality on the ball, his finishing product today was not there. And that's what we really needed from him. So disappointing in that sense. Mudryk on the other side, kind of a joke that I thought of at halftime before he got pulled off, which I don't know if that means, injury, if it means sickness, if something else was going on, or if it was just, well, you were awful in the first half, so get off. But in my head, how I pictured it is last week at Anfield, or not last week, 2 weeks ago at Anfield, he was just constantly, he was taking on players, he was breaking out with a lot of pace and with a lot of energy in the box. He was looking to actually make runs that would cause problems for the defenders. And I just pictured Potter watching all of that, and then afterwards the Black Panther meme. We don't do that here. That's the first half was the exact opposite of his performance at Anfield. He never took on anybody. He never broke out with pace. In the box, he was stagnant. It was the exact opposite of his performance at Anfield. So I don't know if that was just a one-off. I don't know if Potter, again, if he just got onto him because he's like, no, that's too attack-minded. That's too progressive. We want to be boring and dull here. Or if, again, he might have been dealing with some sort of sickness or injury today. The fact that he got pulled off at halftime would lead me to assume that the latter is what's going on. And I both hope and not hope that that's the case. Because on the one hand, if it's the case, well, okay, good. So that performance we saw at Anfield was not a one-time thing, because today was just, dealing with something. But on the other hand, we've been dealing with so many injuries and players missing that, God, I swear if he's going to be out for a little while because he's picked up some sort of niggling injury that's just, going to be sticking with him for a while. But anyways, Havertz up top. I won't bash him too much more. But yeah, just I've talked about him a lot. I've talked about his lack of movement, his inability to play as a striker, just all of that stuff. I don't know what more I can say. I guess today, showed more and more how he just has no sense of where he is because of all the offside moments that he had. And he had probably our best chance that he absolutely... Well, no, okay, Fofana did have probably our best chance that he wasted. But, yeah, I mean, he had one good ball over the top that he ends up putting off the post. And that's about all he did today. Everything else, nothing from him. Offsides, not making runs, standing and waiting. There was one, actually, there was one moment that kind of exemplified his play, because Sterling picks up the ball, sees Madueke? I don't know how to pronounce it, but sees him on the far side, gets it out to him, but it's kind of a lofted, looping ball, which means Robinson now has plenty of time to get out there. So Madueke's only option is to nod it down to somebody. Havertz is the closest player, so he nods it into space for him. And Havertz just stands and watches as he nods it into the space that he should have been breaking into. I'm like, that's exactly why Havertz is my least favorite player right now. Even despite, as bad as Cucurella is as a player, he at least works. He works his butt off. He's awful. He's a terrible defender and a terrible in the final third, but he works his butt off. He's up and down the line constantly. Havertz just doesn't do a damn thing. He'll make 3 runs per game. 2 of those will be offside, and the one where he's not offside, he'll waste the chance by putting it off the post. And that's it. So, yeah, I'm sick of seeing him. And he's been playing every match, so I'm just tired of it. As far as the subs that came on, Madueke came on for Mudryk at halftime, and he was probably the signing that I knew the least about. It was between him and Badiashile, really, as far as all of our January signings. What I saw today, he looked okay. He's got a lot of pace on him, it seems. But I just didn't see a lot of quality in his touches today. Like, watching Mudryk play at Anfield, you could tell he has quality. The way he could cut in and out of challenges and stuff. Madueke today, it just felt like running was his thing. Like he's just running with the ball, running into space, running. And that was kind of it. So... I didn't see much from him today. Maybe he does have it and he just didn't get a chance to show it, but I feel like I want to see more quality on the ball and not just let me run with this because I got speed. The next 2 subs were Espilicueta for James, and he was just kind of better defensively today than he has been, but as far as his work rate, I mean, he always does well. He always busts up and down the line. Sometimes a little too much. Today there were a couple times where he's making a run down the line where he doesn't need to and suddenly lose it and he's out of position. So I do think if he's going to be a right fullback, that part of his game needs to maybe come back a little bit because he doesn't have the pace anymore and the endurance, I don't think, to get up and down the line as much as he used to. And there's so many players that are fast, faster than he is as well. So I'd prefer to see him just stay back more and be a good defender because that's really what I've liked about his play all these years. And then the other one, was that one Fafana? No, Sterling came on for Ziyech, I believe. And that was just, getting to see Sterling back in, getting to see, can he come back with a bit more energy than what we've seen from him so far this season, mainly under Potter because he was doing okay under Tuchel. And, he did okay. And nothing fantastic, nothing that made me go, yes, we're finally seeing why we signed Sterling. We're seeing a bit of that magic that we saw from him at Man City, but just still not really seeing much of it today, so a little frustrating there. Fafana then came on for Mount, which disappointed me only because, I'd prefer to see Havertz go off over Mount. But, I mean, decent performance overall. He had a couple moments where it's like, okay, yes, this is what we want to see out of a striker. We want to see making runs in behind. We want to see him, energetic. But that chance that he missed is just, it's not good enough. He is young. He's 20 years old, so got chance to grow. But, man, that touch, he does well to take it past the keeper. Does well to keep it under control. That cutback was almost exactly what we needed. Problem is, too far. And now he's got to take a couple of extra steps to try to get to it, which now gives Ream a chance to get back into position, and he just puts it exactly where you'd expect him to put it. And Ream read it. Everybody in the stadium knew where he was going, and it was way too easy to block. So the run was fantastic. The setup for it was fantastic, and the finish was just absolute crap. And we need players who can finish. That is the one problem. We cannot find players who can finish. So it's like we brought him in. He's doing well. Finishing is terrible. Why did we bring him in then? Because we had players that we let go of that were great up until the finish as well. Why? And then Joel came on, and I remember before when he got injured for a while and then came back, his first couple matches, he looked slow. He looked really out of it. Today, very much the same. I don't know what it is about Chilwell returning from injury, but the first couple matches, it always feels like he's just miles off the pace of the game, and he looked off today as well. So hopefully he can get back into it soon. If not, and if Hall's not injured, you got to go with Hall. I mean, you have to. My God. Oh, Kukurea is so bad. But anyways, those are all my thoughts. Like I said, we still have not beaten any team in the top half of the table, and that's where our problems lie. Because we have several teams that we could have overtaken if we'd beaten Liverpool, if we'd beaten Fulham. We'd be suddenly, okay, we got a chance for Europe. But we're not getting the job done. We're not beating those teams. We're not trying to really push to get those wins, and it's showing. That's why we're middle of the table. Not at all challenging for Europe. With a middle of the table manager. I mean, honestly, the best example I can give for that is you take Potter out of Brighton. You just took Brighton with him. And now we're all of a sudden Brighton. We're the mid-table team that just can hardly get a win, and Brighton are suddenly playing like they're one of the better teams in the Premier League, and it's just it's both funny but also very frustrating, obviously. So, but anyways, that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the match today? Let me know. We can talk about, discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea videos. I might be making a video about the transfers and stuff that I'll post sometime next week, maybe. If I'm feeling up to it, because honestly, I'm just tired. Very tired. I'll see you guys when I see you. Peace out.